Hi everybody, my name's Rebecca Beattie and I'm a writer who lives in London. So just behind me now we've got Totteridge Fields Nature Reserve, and we're up in the borough of Barnet in northwest London. It's quite a green borough, which is really lovely for me because it means I get to have lots of lovely walks at weekends. And we've got a bit of a grey day for it today. It's sort of heavy cloud hanging overhead, but the birds are still singing and it's a beautiful day to be walking whatever the weather. So what's so special to me about this walk? Well, I've lived in London for about 20 years now, and before that I grew up in the middle of Dartmoor, in the most remote part of the moors, where basically nature would slap you around the head every morning when you woke up and stepped out of your front door. And when I moved to London, it became quite a challenge for me to find ways of connecting to nature in the same way that I had in Dartmoor. And it took me quite a long time to find walks that really gave me a sense of being in nature and being lost in nature. On Dartmoor, the one thing that I loved about walking on the moors was that you could walk for hours and not really see anybody. So to find a space in London where you can still plug in, connect to nature and still feel that kind of blissful solitude is really, really valuable. Famous last words: never say that you're fully alone in London. Just behind me now there's a man with a metal detector out scouting for something or other in the nature reserve, so I wasn't really on my own, but you know what I mean. So the walk that I'm bringing you on now is my regular route, and I write about this on the Moonbooks blog under the title of Urban Nature Mystic. So I'm interested in ways that as pagans we can connect to nature whilst living in these very urban environments. Now, I know looking around me and hearing the birds, you'd probably think, urban environment, what's she talking about? But we are actually in northwest London. I'm in zone 5, but it's still very much London. So it's quite a challenge sometimes to find ways of connecting to nature in that kind of space, and I'm interested in how we do that. So as it's Beltane, I thought I'd just share with you, we've got the hawthorn standing behind me, and we're not quite in the phase of May blossom just yet, but you can see if you get closer and closer and closer that there are little buds on the tree that are going to be springing open very soon. If you'd like to connect with me on Facebook, I'm on there, and I have a photo album of photographs that I'm taking as the year goes through of the nature walks that I'm doing in London, and it's called Urban Nature Mystic. So there's some quite nice pictures in there if you want some, I was going to say nature porn, but you know what I mean. So when I first used to walk about 8 years ago, one of the things I always noticed was people would look at me as if I was really strange, because I'd be walking in these country walks like this that are on the edge of the city with no dog. But I think programmes like Claire Balding's Ramblings have kind of reminded people that walking's a really good thing to do and that it's okay to do it. So these days I do get to see more people out without dogs and don't get looked at as if I'm quite as strange as I did. So I'm on top of the hill now at Moat Farm, where they have horses that they stable. And I just was thinking about some of the nature that we have in London and how it behaves quite differently to the nature on Dartmoor, really. Obviously on Dartmoor we had amazing varieties of creature that were all around us, but they were often quite hard to get close to. And I find in London, one of the things that's most noticeable is that the nature behaves very differently. So it's all around us, people don't notice it's there, and the animals get to get closer to us than they would in places like Dartmoor somehow. So last night when I was travelling back from Brighton, for instance, the train stopped for a signal at one point, so we were sitting on the train tracks waiting to get into one of the stations, and the most beautiful fox was about 3 feet away from me outside the window, just on the railway tracks. So it's these kind of edge lands of the city that have the most amazing nature that you can see, and I often find observing those details while I'm just going about my daily business on trains and stuff is just, it gives us an amazing opportunity. But I wanted you to see this walk because it's really rather special. And part of the reason this walk is special to me is it's the first time I've kind of really connected to the London landscape in the way that I connected to Dartmoor. Half of my family were from Devon on my mum's side, but the other half were actually Londoners. My dad's family came from the East End of London. And then when I was chatting to my dad one day about this amazing walk that I'd found through Barnet Gate Woods, he was telling me that during the Second World War, when my grandfather was stationed overseas and my grandma was living alone with her two boys, which were my dad and his brother, they got bombed out of the East End and had to leave central London, so they moved to Barnet. And my dad, as a boy of about between 7 and 9, used to play in these woods that I walk through. So I think that's really rather special, and I wonder if that helps me to connect to the landscape. This is such a pretty part of the walk. As we go down the hill, I'll try not to shake it too much, but you get into this little, it's almost like a little grotto area where the trees come in, and there's these lovely little benches you can sit on. Part of the reason I do so much walking, I come from a family of walkers, and it's something we've always just done. So when I moved to London, it sort of felt quite strange not to be walking. But also as a writer, I find it's really important to my writing process to be able to walk things through. So often I write on the tube going to work, which is a slightly odd pattern of behaviour, but it works for me. It's kind of very quiet, and people don't really talk, and it's dark, and there's not things to look at that will distract you. So I tend to write on the tube, but in order to get the ideas of what I'm going to write this week, I really need to be out in nature, sort of getting my boots muddy and really connecting. So here we are, this is one of my favourite views of this wood, and I must have hundreds of photographs of this. So if you go onto Facebook and have a look through into my photographs, I'm on Facebook under my real name because I wasn't imaginative to think up a pen name before I published the book, and then thought, oh, everyone knows now that I'm a pagan. So if you look for me on Facebook, I'm under Rebecca Beattie. And have a look through my photos, and amongst all the photograph albums of family holidays and National Trust visits, there's this one album called Urban Nature Mystic, and you'll see lots of photos of this view of the woods, and it's lovely now. It's been beautiful seeing it as the year goes through, turns through the wheel of the year, and we go from winter into spring into summer, and it's really nice seeing the changes that you can see. It's so green now.